Member Cottrell
Aye.
and Chair Hunter.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries.
All right. So the next order of business, and anybody in the audience or at home that has a non-agenda item, now's the time to express your interest. Raise your hand. Got nothing?
Correct. Nothing.
Okay, then moving on. Public hearing to review a site plan for a fence at 990 North Shore Drive. Since this is a public hearing, I have to swear anybody that's going to talk to this in. So anybody's going to talk, I assume that's going to be you, Rick. You have to stand up, raise your right hand.
And the contractor is also online too for this item.
Okay, so,
He can raise
anyway.
his right hand virtually, and
yeah.
as far as we know.
Okay, so repeat after me. What is it now? I forgot it.
Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth.
Oh, yeah.
nothing but the truth.
So will
Sorry.
you tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in the testimony you're about to give? If so, say I do. I do. Thank you. Okay, so let's move on then with it. Rick, you want to talk about it?
Yeah, please come up to the podium for everyone speaking tonight, just for everybody's benefit.
Okay, thank
We're
you.
recording and broadcasting on cable access, so
Great.
we want everyone to talk into the microphone whenever
Thank you.
possible.
So probably 90 days ago or so, unfortunately, we were broken into one night. And we had probably 6 young kids pull up in front, 3 of them crashed through the windows on one side, ran around in the showroom for a while. Of course, we have our keys hidden. And they went through all the cars and couldn't find any keys. This was happening in a matter of minutes. It happened at about 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning. This same group had stolen a car at McGrath Acura in Glenview, engaged in a gunfight with their security people,
Wow.
went a few blocks away and went to Luxury Motors in Glenview as well, broke into there, couldn't get anything done in 2 or 3 minutes, headed north up this way, broke into the Walgreens on Waukegan Road, 176. And the police were all alerted everywhere. And they didn't get anything there, so they came down to our dealership and pulled into the lot. We have it all on video. We have 52 cameras at the dealership. We keep adding more all the time. In fact, we supply them a lot to the Lake Bluff Police Force. Because we have license plate scanners as well. We're trying to pick up all the way. We were using them the other night to try and find out on Christmas Eve. I guess they tried to break into your place. Second time. Is that right? And so they ran around in the showroom for a while, but all the police were alerted. So they really engaged quickly, I think within minutes. And then these guys, ran into the sales offices, pulled the drawers out looking for keys and couldn't find anything. And then I think they heard the sirens coming. This happened in a matter of minutes, so the response was fabulous. We had response from Lake Bluff, Lake Forest, Lake County, Libertyville, and there were 5 different municipalities there with dogs. And so the 3 guys in front were in the getaway car in an Audi, and the other 3 guys were running around inside with their hair on fire. And they hear sirens pulling up, so the getaway car pulls away, drives over the grass to get away. And these 3 guys get pinned in the corner of the showroom. They kind of get pinned in. They actually jump through another plate glass window on the frontage to Waukegan Road to get out. So there was really no damage done other than the windows. Our concern was if they lit a car on fire, stood on the hoods, they could do a lot of damage inside. We're convinced they really can't get a car out. We know how to drive the cars. They don't. It's very narrow, very difficult. The time it would take. And we know where the keys are and the code to the box that's behind the wall, behind the locked door. We know all of that, and we couldn't get a car out of there. They have about 4 minutes before the full force of all the police. Your guys, our guys, and everybody else responded faster. It was a wonderful response. So then they engaged in a high-speed chase. Guys came back, and so once that happens, I think the police have to let them go. They took off at 100 miles an hour or something like that. All the police were there. And one of the sidebars that's kind of funny, one of the Lake Bluff policemen said they had their dogs out. And they said that you got to tell Rick that one of the dogs relieved himself in his office on the west side. And the Lake Bluff policeman said, I'd like to go on record that it was not the dog from Lake Bluff, it was the dog from Lake Forest. So I love dogs anyway, so I'm fine with that. So what we did at that point was, one of the Navy guys that we work with and is involved in a business where they put a clear wrap on the windows. They can do embassy level where it can stop normal pistol fire and so forth. So we hardened up all the windows on every window. It was 28 windows around the dealership, and it was expensive. It cost about $60,000 to do that, plus our windows in the storage building. So it was a necessary step to take because from an insurance standpoint, we're really at risk at that point. Not so much as the car disappearing, but the damage that could be done. It could be an enormous amount of money. So again, we increased our cameras. We made everyone situationally aware. We try and practice good practices. We're closed to the public. It has to be appointment only. That's for insurance, as we were talking about, and from health standpoint. And then we started talking about the idea of preventing drive-through traffic all the time, because we see a lot of people do that. They're always taking pictures. We don't know if they're taking pictures of our security systems or what they're doing. And as recently as 4 or 5 days ago, sometime around Christmas Eve, we had a very unusual van pull through the lot. Actually, it was after Christmas Eve, right at closing, and drove real slowly around the interior perimeter of the courtyard, and then drove up the front yard, that single lane drive on Waukegan, which is very unusual to do that. Our cameras caught it, our guys caught it, we phoned it into the police. It was an expired license plate, it was a landscape van that was no longer in business, so I don't know whether it was stolen or what was going on at that point. We also engaged house security. We have a car parked there during the night until almost 7 o'clock in the morning. It's an enormous expense. It's $7,500 a month. So what we're trying to do is make the interior courtyard secure now, and that's the purpose for the fence. So we got a hold of John Deeney from Electronic Entry Systems out of Winnetka, and we've designed what I think is architecturally compatible and pleasant for the area. You know, we're not just putting up hard steel cyclone fence or something like that. And we also, at the last second, I kind of thought of, and I don't know if they did supply a drawing, on that single lane that we have, I asked them to, if you have time, please send a drawing tonight so they could at least see it. I think we need to put just a single sliding wrought iron. We have a chain link there now. It doesn't particularly look that good. And they can unhook the chain. But our cameras will pick up if someone's driving slowly around trying to spec everything out. That's the reason for the fence. We've tried to make it as pleasant looking and efficient as we can. Don't know what else I can add to that, other than what I should add that you guys should know. We're proud of this. Recently, it doesn't have too much to do with the fence, but a lot to do with, as we were talking earlier about the old days of getting started with this and doing this for many years, which has been many years now here in Lake Bluff. We were recently listed by Ferrari as one of the top 3 Ferrari dealership technical centers in the world. It's out of 200 dealerships. It was us, it was China, and it was Australia. And we were listed again in 19. It was us, it was Tokyo, and it was London. London won. We don't know if we were second or third. And then they didn't have meetings for 2 years, so we claimed that then we must have had it straight through then. But really, we just were reaffirmed in 22 as top 3. China was the one that won, but we were listed as the #1 dealership technically by Ferrari and the customers for the Americas, North, Central, and South America. So Ferrari loves what we're doing. They love where we're doing it. They love the way we're doing it. And I think a lot of that has to do with the nice working relationship we have with you guys as well. Everything's very transparent, good, bad, or whatever we think. We're always open to suggestions. So if you have some on this, we're all ears on it. But that's the history and the background of what we're attempting to do. Just harden the exterior.
Congratulations on the, I don't know if it's a award, they hand you out an extra car.
I'll never know. It's very hard. They're very cagey guys. So, yeah, but it's the team that's done it. The service team is superb. The receptionists, it's really the people that are there. They've done a great job. We're real proud of them.
Yeah.
That's where it comes
It's
from.
hard to get by your receptionist.
Yeah, they're good at it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, Scott, you want to start?
I don't have any questions. I think it looks great.
Okay. Matt?
Yeah, how can you say no to this with that crazy situation? I take it this is an electronic gate,
Yes.
right? Where would the mechanics of this is it I don't see, like, there has to be some kind of mounted motor or something, or is it all within the fence itself?
That's a good question. I'm not sure. I know it's powered electrically, and the electric is in. I think the motors are somewhere right in the grass
Right in
area,
that
and they're
area,
small.
yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I was just curious. I mean, I don't think it matters.
So we do have the contractor, John Denny, on.
John Denny,
online.
yes.
Yeah, so maybe he could answer that question. John, can you?
Hi, John.
Yep, sure. Hello, everybody. Thank you for having me. Yeah, I second everything that Rick has said, by the way. He's been very diligent in trying to make sure that this is the highest quality system that looks great, but also works well and provides the security that will help his business there and the neighborhood. So the motors, there's one motor for each gate. The one thing about those drawings, it shows the fence and the gates themselves, but we don't have the motors drawn in, which if you needed to, we could provide. But it's essentially a kind of a dark black and gray box that's between the two posts off of the drive surface. In the grassy area. So just to the left of the left gate as you're looking into the dealership, and to the right of the right post there as you're looking in.
Something we could landscape, John?
Yes, and landscaping can be put both on the outside to hide it from the public view, and also if you would like on the inside to, help hide it from the people that are in the courtyard and in the building.
I think that would be a good idea. We'd be real agreeable to that at your suggestions as well, because we want it to look face. That's the entry to everything that we do. So it's a great question.
Okay.
Thank you, John.
And what is the width of the driveway itself that the gate is actually closing up?
We're looking at 36 feet, I believe. So it's quite, we want to keep the opening. Rick had wanted to keep the wide opening that was there to, don't want to close it off just from traffic, so there's, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
That was kind of the challenge in setting this up. At the old dealership in Lake Forest, we had hinged gates, and they were very difficult in the winter. We used to go out there at night, and we used to have chisels with us and hammers if it had been snowing and there was ice, because then we couldn't stake them into the ground. They had no motors, and we had to do it by hand. They would start sagging, and it would take a long time to open and close. So we, with John's suggestions, this is real heavy duty, but it's all leveled and balanced, and they slide back and forth, and I think it will achieve mechanically what we need and visually what we like and you like as well.
Great, that's it. It looks great.
Thank you.
I'm sorry you have to do it, but it looks good.
We have absolutely no reserves about working with you guys. We've been doing it for a long time, and we appreciate it. We've had a lot of good suggestions as well.
Sure.
We like where we are. We enjoy it. It's all part of what we do. So
Yeah.
this relationship has been helpful for us.
Neil?
I think it's just fine. How's that for a comment?
I appreciate that. John Daney should take credit. I mean, he did a great job in the design, and we talked about it. We walked around. We kept changing it and tweaking it, and I probably drove him a little crazy. And then we worried about, we've got to get it in because sooner is better than later. And then it got so cold. So in the meantime, we've been able to refine the design, and we continue to do that. So,
It's obvious that you've both done some thinking on this, so.
well, we know that we have to face you guys as well. We don't want to have any controversy. We'd like to come in well prepared. So.
Okay.
Yeah, I see nothing wrong with it. The only comment I'd make is the fence at the west side, it just turns 90 degrees. And I'm wondering, maybe it'd look nicer, and this is really up to you, if it was more parallel to the driveway surface.
I haven't seen the design yet. We did that so last minute just to send it to you as kind of an interim working document in process. I'd be happy to take a look at it with that approach, and
It's just a thought.
we'll certainly consider it and take a look at it, because we want it to be as aesthetically correct as we can as well. I'll come back for that one, and we'll get it figured out.
Okay, I'm left, all right, I think it looks a great-looking fence. I like the way it rises in the middle. My question is, what is the horse gonna be on this one? Gonna be black or is it gonna be silver?
John, we've had that discussion.
I believe we were looking at it being, I believe we were gonna look at it being stainless. So it's gonna be beautiful. Rick, again, very much high attention to detail and wanted to make sure it's the exact proportions and Ferrari logo. So it's going to be mounted to, I believe, the left side fence, the left side gate. So it's, you know, when it splits in the middle, it's going to travel along with the left side.
Is that acceptable for you guys that it's stainless versus black?
Well, you've changed all your logos to,
But we had to.
yeah, I know.
And they came back to me, by the way, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, John. They came back to us 4 or 5 months ago and said they wanted the signs turned to red. And I said, no.
Good.
I am not going before that board again and asking for any change on these signs, and I'm certainly not going to ask them to change the beautiful stainless to red. No.
They wanted to change the stainless to red?
Yes,
They haven't even had a chance to weather.
that's correct.
Would it be polished stainless or brushed? Or haven't you got that far?
What do you
I
think?
don't think we've gotten that far yet. We have the
No, we
ability to
haven't.
do either one.
Okay.
We can do
Just
whatever you
curious.
guys suggest,
I
whatever
think
you
you gotta
think.
match what you got there.
Pardon me?
You should match what you've got.
I think so,
Yeah.
but we'll study this some more and then polished versus brushed and so forth. Good question. We kind of have a little in between on some of the signs. It looks nice. So,
Is this wrought iron or is it steel tubes or what is it?
wrought
It's
iron, to my
gotta
understanding.
be something pretty substantial.
The fencing? and-
Yeah.
And
Yeah, it's all what we call custom fabricated ornamental iron. I mean, wrought iron is essentially means wrought by hand, which, you know, very few do. But it's all going to be steel. It's all powder coated, so it's very sturdy, long lasting, and strong.
yeah, I'm glad to hear you say that because I know it's priced as wrought iron and it's very strong. And I know the wrought iron, which we use a little bit of at the old dealership in Lake Forest, is expensive, but it's strong.
It's strong. That was
It's very
kind of my
strong,
point, because
yes.
other stuff you
Yeah.
can do this.
Yeah, and that's how the gates close on a magnetic field, by the way, which John's explanation is it can't be pried open.
Yeah.
Can't be pried open. And if someone's out there trying to bash the gates down with a truck or bring a crowbar to get in, that should alert the people on the cameras that they're not working with good intentions, so.
Okay.
If I could add one other comment, just because it might come up later, we're always concerned as a business and always have been with safety first. We do have a Knox key switch that was, I believe, approved by your fire chief. So that's the gate will be outfitted with that. So even if it's in the middle of the nighttime, if for some reason they need to come in, obviously for fire or for, you know, personal, you know, health and safety reasons, they'll be able to access the gate with their Knox key.
Okay.
That's great, thank you.
Your police and fire department have done a great job supporting us for whatever we've ever needed there, quickly and pleasantly and professionally.
That's great. It's good to know.
Yeah, no, they have, there's been
When did
top flight.
this break-in happen?
Pardon me?
When did this break-in happen?
3 months ago, maybe, something like that.
So there was some guys last night in my next door neighbor, caught it on the film, coming up the driveway, the lights went on, they took off.
Yeah.
2:39 last night, or this
Yeah.
morning.
And
A
They-
car
and
stolen.
then-
twice.
A car stolen on Prospect
And then two
last night.
cars were stolen 10 minutes later.
Tried in. Yeah.
Yeah, two cars down the street, the next block were gone 2 minutes later. I think, I wonder if John's, one of his Land Rovers is gone. Because he's right down there. Anyway, okay, so let's vote on this. Anybody have any other questions of?
Are we recommending or
Yeah.
approving?
This is because of the ordinance change, you now have the ability to do final approval.
We have three shots now.
Yeah, right.
I move to approve as submitted.
Second?
Okay, Scott
Roll
got
call?
Okay, Member Cottrell,
Aye.
Member Dahlman,
Aye.
Member Kerouac,
Aye.
Member Stradiff,
Aye.
and Chair Hunter.
Aye.
Okay, the motion passes 5-0.
Great, thank you. We'll come back to you and show you the landscape plan, and then when we finalize the stainless versus black on the Cavallino on the gate, we'll come back to you and present that to you. So we're all engaged in the process. No one's surprised when it's done.
Okay, great.
Okay,
Great.
great.
Great, thanks,
Okay.
thanks a lot for your support.
Yep,
Thanks, Rick.
Thank you, Rick.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Take care.
Thank you, John.
Thanks, John.
Okay.
Okay, so we've got
do we
the Chevy Exchange sign.
Okay, where is my agenda?
Did you want to see an agenda? There, right there. Yeah.
All right, next is a consideration of sign permit for Chevy Exchange at 1001 Sherwood Drive. Anybody here for that? Yeah, okay.
Welcome.
All right, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Please introduce yourself and tell us about it.
My name's Robbie Whitehead. I'm from Olympic Sign Company out of Lombard. 40-year-old sign company, do a lot of work in your town, so thank you. Do I need to be sworn in?
Nope, because signs aren't.
Nope,
public
you're,
hearing,
this is
so-
not a public hearing, so
Sounds
you're good to go.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Simple face change here. So Smedpo going to Chevy Exchange. The actual structure of the monument sign is not changing, just the sign face itself. Little bit about the construction of the actual face. It's a routed out aluminum sign face, so at night, the only things that will light up is the logo and then the Chevy Exchange copy. The white you see during the day will not light up and will not be translucent. So that aluminum is routed out, backed with day-night plex, the black, and then the Chevy logo is routed out with polycarbonate digitally printed. So not very overpowering, just a solid, clean look.
And that's the only sign you're dealing with?
What's that?
That's the only sign you're?
Yes, sir.
Okay. What do you
So
for?
this sign used to meet code, and then we changed the way sign area is measured to measure it from the top of the sign all the way to the ground. And now this no longer does, but he's just replacing the face in the existing structure, so. But
Okay.
technically, it's a variance, or an exemption from that.
Oh, because of the base?
Yeah, right, because of the way we calculate
Well,
area now.
yeah.
Yeah, the base.
Well, I don't think we can undo something that's there. So, that's my opinion. Art, you got any thoughts?
This sign is for the Chevy dealer that's down on 41.
Yeah,
So it's just letting people know
well, it's on
who's
the,
traveling on Waukegan.
Yeah, they're across the street.
Well, they bought this so there's two buildings on this site. One that is the veterinary people, which are tenants there, and they're staying there. And then the Chevy Exchange also bought the building, the whole property. But so they have a building here, although they're not opening it and operating it as a dealership right now, but they do own the property and have one building here on site.
Right.
They own the
Now,
property
which
where
is
the
new.
veterinary people are too?
So they bought what the Smedbo owned, which was the whole property with the veterinary people as tenants in one building.
So currently, this sign draws attention to the actual showroom and so forth.
Yeah,
It's east of,
yeah, it does function that way, right, because they're not really using the building they own, yeah, right.
so I am.
okay.
It seems to me like, even though it doesn't conform today, that it's almost like it's grandfathered, that it
That's my
existed,
thinking,
it was
yeah.
okay. So I'm comfortable with us approving the sign as submitted. I like the way they've handled it for
The nighttime?
night purposes
Yeah.
and so forth, so.
Yeah,
Yeah, I like the sign. I guess I don't want to say confused, but is the sign just a placeholder, right? I mean, it's not indicating anything specific to that location. You're just using the sign to just more branding or marketing.
That's
Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yeah. I have no issues on the sign itself. I don't know if that's gonna, do you know, well, you probably don't know what they're planning on doing, so I won't
I
ask you.
don't.
No,
Just-
okay.
just a
You don't
sign
need to
guy.
speak on their behalf. I
Yeah.
don't want you to. So your side is great. You did it.
Thank
The
you.
sign's lovely.
Thank you.
And us all good. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have one question. Is there a legal reason that you need to add a division of Summersky Enterprises, Inc.?
I assume so.
Leave that off?
Yeah, you know, that's not up to me. They send me their logo and I
Okay.
plug it in the sign.
I think it'd be cleaner without it
Yeah.
if you could, but you really can't see it
Yeah.
much.
It's very minimal.
That's all you have? Okay, all right, then we need any other questions? Okay, somebody make a motion?
I'll move that we approve the Chevy Exchange sign as a conforming sign that complies with the code.
Well, I don't think we can do that. I think we have to recommend as an exemption too. Oh, but that would only be if he's changing the sign to comply with the area.
Okay, in other words, I move that we recommend to the village board that they approve it.
Right, yep, okay, thank you, yep.
Second.
Okay. Roll call.
Okay. Member Cottrell,
Aye.
Member Dahlman,
Aye.
Member Kerouac,
Aye.
Member Straight
Aye.
and Chair Hunter.
All right,
Okay, the
right.
recommendation passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep,
Thanks.
thanks.
all right, we got some more.
Yep,
Next is a sign permit for Lake Bluff Dental Care at 32 East Scranton.
no, nobody here for
Nobody's
the
here for
dental
that.
care?
Okay, well, this is a pretty simple sign.
Yeah,
There you go.
there's nobody online.
Okay, so I don't remember who came first on this hanging over the sidewalk sign, but at the time, you did.
I did.
You did, and we said, this is gonna start a trend.
It's a
Well,
whole
it
trend.
has. But you
It
know
looks
what?
nice, but it is a trend.
Yeah, I kinda like it.
Yeah.
Okay, so, Scott, what do you think?
I don't have any questions on this one. I think it looks just fine.
Matt?
Yeah, it would be nice to see more details. We kind of have to like piece it together, but I think as long as the dimensions work for us, I have no issues with it. Like, I don't know how it's being mounted to the bracket. I'm sure just two chains,
Just go
but
to the wall.
just-
Oh, you mean, yeah.
yeah, like the circle to the
Right.
bracket, but I have no issue with what they've submitted.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm okay with it.
Art?
No comments.
No comment, okay. All right, then, once again, we need a motion
What?
and a second.
X marks the spot.
I move to, are we,
Yeah, you can do final approval.
okay, I move to approve as submitted.
Second.
Roll call?
Okay. Member Straight
Aye.
Member Kerouac.
Aye.
Member Dahlman,
Aye.
and Member Cottrell,
Aye.
and Chair Hunter.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes.
Okay. All right, well, that's the fun part now. So now, discussion of
Not all the
proposed, huh?
It's
Yeah,
not
this-
all the fun.
Yeah, discussion of proposed new exemption procedure for fire sprinklers.
Yeah, so we had
talked
talked
about
a
that.
little bit, back in, November, I think it was, about, adding an exemption process to our fire sprinklers. We do have the retrofit requirement coming due January 1st, 2026, and we talked about how that, applies to everything other than single-family that, that doesn't have sprinklers. So, ComEd has a building full of electrical equipment on Green Bay Road near 176. The Park District has a small little restroom building down on the lakefront. So, rather than try to carve out exemptions in the code. It might be better to have a process where people can apply for an exemption and we can consider their application on their merits, and we're proposing. So we talked with the village board about it, which liked the concept too, then we've just put together this draft, ordinance, and we have some criteria in there on, letter C, that talks about, any unusual or practical difficulties installing the system, the size and location of the building, the hazards in around the building. These are, criteria to consider. The occupancy classification and occupant load of the building, access for firefighting, and whether it meets or exceeds code requirements for egress and other life safety requirements, and whether it's only required to do sprinklers by our local amendments or whether the national building codes itself would require sprinklers are among the criteria to consider. And then for process, we're thinking they would come here to the ABR with a recommendation from staff and be heard here for a decision here on exemptions, so. And we have people here interested in the audience who I think want to speak on this too, so up to you. Do you want to call the audience first or hear thoughts and comments from our board
Yeah,
first?
sure. Who wants to talk about that?
Sure, come on up and introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Nick Standiford. I live over in Lake Forest, town over. I'm an attorney. I'm here for a property owner who couldn't be here tonight of 960 West North Shore. That's kind of right near that Ferrari dealership we were just reviewing. There's a building built in the 1960s, and it would be subject to the current code requirement that the fire sprinklers be installed. So the owner just wanted me to come to express his thanks for potentially considering this exemption process and laying out some criteria by which we could apply for that relief. So we have one of the tenants here. He's the furrier at the location, and this would certainly be appealing to him and his business, which he has a lease. And for a long-term lease, certainly the exemption would be very important because having sprinklers, and I'll let him speak a little about it, would really hurt the business and hurt his viability at the site. So I guess with respect to that, there were some questions we had about some of the criteria, and kind of maybe if staff can go over kind of how this criteria was formulated, so we know kind of what notes to hit if this is adopted, and so when we're applying for any relief, if this is adopted, and we are back before this body seeking an exemption. Mm-hmm. Specifically, I think the it would be number 6 and number 7. We were kind of just looking for any information on those if it was available. I think it's pretty self-explanatory, but just want to make sure we're reviewing the right stuff. And then wondering whether there's going to be a formal application that we'll be applying for, like a form that the village will produce, or whether it's just an application that we submit, like a letter with exhibits attached.
Yeah, I think we will draft a basic application form for it.
Perfect.
Yep.
Perfect. Mm-hmm. And then I think that the churches are still going to be exempt. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
And what was the rationale behind the churches being exempt? I wasn't at those hearings.
Yeah, right. I mean, that was a decision made in 2010, so I wasn't here either at the time, and I am not entirely sure. They did require them to install a full fire alarm system to qualify for their exemption, and they had an earlier deadline. I think by 2014 they had to have the fire alarm system in, so obviously the churches did it and qualified for their exemption, but I'm not quite sure.
Well, I was, and so were you.
Yeah.
And my recollection is because of the architectural, if you want to call it the architectural significance of the inside of the church and the way they're constructed, it would be really difficult to put a suppression system in there. It would have to be exposed. And neither one of those buildings is kind of adaptable to that without really starting to destroy the ambiance of what you go in there for, so.
Got it. Very good. And this ordinance doesn't change that in any way. I always want to make that clear. This only exempts anyone who comes in before this body and applies, and could appeal to the board if they felt aggrieved by the decision. So I think just the high point is the main point I wanted to make tonight is just that we thank you for considering this exemption process, and we think it could be a good way to deal with this and allow people some way to explain how they would be potentially impacted by the 2026 deadline.
Now,
So
are we
thank you.
referring to just the Furrier space or the entire
It
building?
would be the whole building, yeah. So the issue with this is that there's, you would need to bring water service in. And so, and there's tenants on different lease dates, so you really couldn't, install different sprinkler systems. You'd have to have everyone out at the same time, probably, to make it most economically feasible. And that would require all the leases to end on a date certain, or have people cut their leases short or seek a extension of the deadline through this body. So it's just the whole building would be sought to remain without sprinklers. There is a fire alarm system installed, and so to the extent there was a fire, response could be made. And I think that there's part of this process is that you look at the hazards in or around the building, you look at access to the building for firefighting. You also look at whether or not the building has the sufficient egress and life safety requirements, and you have to meet those. So, as part of this process, we would go through, I would imagine, and talk about all the ways that we're protecting people and product from fires. And so those would be the arguments that we would sit up here and make if this board were to recommend and the village board were to adopt this ordinance.
Okay,
I guess I have one additional thought for you. I'm aware of some other communities that have exemption processes like this. And one of the things that they've done is to say, well, if you put in more smoke and fire alarm detectors than would normally be required, like maybe they doubled the amount of detectors or something like that, then they exempted it. But that's just a thought to consider.
Yeah, I didn't see that. We kind of looked at a few different ordinances. We looked at Lake Forest, we looked at Libertyville, Highland Park, to kind of see what they did. And they all had different ways of approaching it. I couldn't remember if there was something about adding more life safety or fire safety improvements could get you out of it. I know that in Lake Forest, if you're changing the occupancy to a occupancy that was higher, I think, you would have to come into compliance. I know that there was a requirement that in Highland Park, if the building was being appraised at a higher value, that would trigger the requirement to sprinkler the building. So I think it was 50%. Yeah, 50%. If the alteration costs of basically a lot of the towns say, if you're gonna remodel the building, we're gonna make you sprinkler it. But that remodeling usually has to be like 50% of the assessed value of the building or 50% of the space, of the building. Kind of those were the triggering events. They said, okay, now you have to sprinkler your buildings.
Yeah, the one I'm aware of was remodeling of a historic building that would have been very difficult to put sprinklers in. And the way, this was in Highland Park, and the way they got around it was by putting more detectors in.
Okay, yeah, that's a good solution. I know in Lake Forest, there's, the exemption also requires an opinion from the fire chief that there's no life safety hazard with you not having to sprinkler the building. So that's kind of what they did. But when those are different processes. Those involve a triggering event. Here, we're asking for, this body to make an exemption, and it can attach conditions or whatever. So it's a little bit of a different process. I didn't see as much of an appeal process in those ordinances. But if the direction from the Lake Bluff Village Board is that this is the process to go with, I think it's workable.
okay.
Okay, well, that's good.
Well, we'll look forward to seeing with you whenever that time comes.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right, Mr. McCarthy?
Oh, okay.
Good evening, gentlemen. My name is Greg McCarthy. I own a company called McElroy Furs. I've been a business participant in Lake Bluff for 29 years and have enjoyed being over there in North Shore Drive for quite a long time. And I'd like to continue staying there, and this is an issue for me in terms of continuing my business there. I don't like getting into too many particulars in terms of the how, the what for, what we have at that location and that sort of thing because of what we have there. But I can tell you that if the sprinklers went off in our space, it would probably be 3 to 4x the cost of the building. And I just, you know, it's a whole different sort of view of the situation.
Do you know what other furriers do?
They don't sprinkle.
They don't.
Do not.
Okay.
Do not. Nobody does. So, but anyway, I just want to express myself as Nick just did. Thank you for at least working toward putting together some sort of exemption that possibly could work for us. I'd love to stay here in Lake Bluff, and I'm a resident here in Lake Bluff, and I love my 5-minute commute.
Yeah, we want you to stay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, okay. What else have we got then? The building code updates.
Yeah, so the last item is related, it's building code updates, and I have to apologize, I realized just before the meeting that my drafts did not come through as red line drafts. I'd intended for those to print out as red lines showing you what's changing in those chapters. But we are picking this up from, you know, where we had left things last spring when we did several more chapters, and I included the, you know, guide to what's changing in the I codes in 2018. And my hope is, I'm gonna be on vacation for the February meeting, so my hope is that we would be ready to have our public hearing on the code changes for our March meeting, if all sounds well to you guys. So I don't think, I put a bunch of chapters in here, but I don't think that there's really all that much as far as significant, you know, policy changes in there. I think it was, a lot of it was taking out local amendments where they end up being very similar to the wording that's in the national code these days, and changing over section numbers and that type of thing.
Okay, so we have to kind of wade through this on our own then.
Yeah, so I can certainly, you know, put all the chapters, including the ones we've looked at last spring that I'm sure people have mostly forgotten by now, up on Dropbox or something, and email a link out to you guys if you want to take a look at it.
Right, with your markings on it.
Yeah, with the markings
Yeah.
on it, to give you a
I
chance
think
to get
in
it.
order to do our job, we probably should.
Yeah, right, right.
When do we kick in with the R60 and the, for our insulation and all that?
Well, the state is working on changing the energy code, and they're
Yeah.
gonna mandate the new date for the
Okay.
whole state. They have, the legislature passed something, but then saying the rulemaking committee, JCAR, has to do their part of it, and they've been working on it for a few months, that rulemaking committee, so we're expecting it to happen sometime during
Because I
this
know
year.
people that are trying to abide by it, they're having a hard time just making like res check, I mean,
Oh, yeah.
it's just gonna be a
Yeah.
nightmare. You're not gonna be able to do affordable housing won't be a thing. I mean, you won't be able to
Yeah.
build at a cost per square foot, that makes sense.
Right.
Well, how many communities are enforcing the code as it stands? I know Deerfield is, I just wondered. Like Bluff
yeah.
isn't, right?
No, we are, I mean, we are for the 2018, but they're going to the 2021.
Yeah.
You're talking about the 2021.
2021, yeah.
Yeah. So I don't think anybody is yet in Illinois that I know of.
Well,
Everyone's just-
Deerfield is, it's
They're
crazy.
enforcing the 2021 already?
Right, because they said even though the state hasn't, that's the code
Yeah,
we
I'm
adopted,
doing a couple of homes there, and it was a challenge.
Oh, wow.
I guess.
How do you do it?
I think you cheat.
Making it bigger and bigger?
It's tough. I mean, yeah.
And you just doing this?
Yeah, I mean, you gotta do like a 10 continuous on the exterior, you know, and then you do your 6-inch spray on the interior, and there's just,
Yeah,
and then this roof is R60, that's just full of stuff.
60?
60.
It's like,
It's 49 right
it's like
now.
40 feet of dirt.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
crazy.
yeah.
Yeah, it's tough.
And the state intends to offer everyone the 2021 as the regular code and then a stretch code for people who want to be greener. For communities that want to be greener, they can adopt the stretch code that's more
But
restrictive.
he's gonna be on the pasture to be green.
Yeah, it's just gonna be tough.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
All right, thank you.
No other thoughts or comments on this?
The one thing, just real quick, for the fire sprinkler exemption, we didn't write, you know, I do think that it is gonna be, I feel it's a little bit above my expertise to say this building feels right or wrong. You know, I think we need to bring some other, I would wanna hear from other, like, fire department, other business owners that have very unique circumstances that may not be apparent to us, just to make sure that we're going down the right path.
Right, right.
With signs, approving something seems very
I would-
innocuous.
I
but-
would prefer, I mean, I don't think we wanna get other business owners involved in, but, I mean,
No,
other than
but-
like, ask, what is other
I
furriers
think
do?
if we're having,
But I think having somebody across the street
Yeah.
take a look at what.
yeah,
Yeah, well, yeah, and people will certainly, probably should bring in expert testimony when relevant, you
Yeah.
know, for some of those issues.
yeah, I just think it's a big responsibility on us when we
Right.
say yes or no. I mean, either financially to a business, relocate, you know, being a bit, you know. So I just think this is a bigger issue than what
Right.
we've dealt with before in terms of impacting, you know, life safety, businesses, you know, viability. I would want to get a little bit firmer
Right.
understanding of each one of those, and maybe some,
So I think
examples.
for some applicants, you know, expert testimony is gonna be really relevant. For other things like the restrooms on the beach,
Yeah.
you know, maybe expert testimony is not so
yeah, I
relevant.
mean, that's kind of common
So
sense, you know,
people,
but,
right, so
yeah.
there may be some,
yeah.
you know, I mean, there's several ways we can do it. The village could hire an expert to
Yeah.
provide that testimony, the applicant could. I mean, if an applicant ends up here without, you know, and it seems like more expert testimony is needed, this board can say, hey, we're not comfortable
Right.
approving it without this. You should really think about, you know,
Right.
coming back with more expert testimony instead of just asking for a vote tonight or
Yeah.
something, you know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's probably true, but rather than saddle, you know, somebody with, you know, a $50,000 expert,
Yeah.
maybe we should look at our guys across the street and first, and if they say, no, you need somebody beyond me, then we put
Yeah.
that on.
Well, and maybe they're part of the review process.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Before it comes
So
to us.
their expertise is really fighting the fires, not building and fire prevention, sprinklers and all that. They don't have a, you know, a fire prevention bureau that's an expert
No,
in
they don't.
construction
No.
and all that, yeah.
Well, you might be talking about somebody from an insurance company like Factory Mutual or something like that.
Yeah, yeah.
What about Lake
There's cer-
Forest? Could we borrow some
There's certainly
expertise?
places we can get the expertise,
Yeah.
yeah. There's no problem getting it. We
The-
certainly can hire people.
One question I thought was, you know, would the applicant need to submit, you know, drawings of the building, you know, as you would for, you know, a new construction where you're talking about, you know, egress path distances, you know, fire ratings of all the stuff? Would somebody go out and actually look at the building? In other words, if there's an entrance on the floor plan, is there
there?
a stack of boxes in front of it? You know, I mean, that sort of thing, how the building's being used currently, and what alterations may have been, you know, partitions added, you know, some nice flammable spray foam, you know,
Right.
those kinds of things. I don't know, or would we rely upon the applicant to provide that information?
Yeah, those are really good questions, and I think depending on the situation and how complicated it may be, it might be either up to the applicant to have, you know, an architect or some expertise on their staff to provide that information and verify it, or, you know, I mean, some things I might, you know, go out and look at and verify, but,
kind of see it as at least a two-step thing where they come in here and we say, no, you need this and this and this. And then they go back and either we can help them get this and this and this, or they're on their own, depending on how complex it is.
I think that's what we would need an expert for, is to tell us what are the this, and this is.
Yeah.
To supplement or to,
Right.
in lieu of the sprinkler.
But I think Art brings up a good point, even if it's just a simple diagram of building.
Yeah.
I don't really, I can't tell you, in all the buildings I built, go through every wall and tell you what the rating is. That just doesn't work. I can tell you what the doors are, where they need to be. Since you're listening to this, does any of this make sense to you?
Yeah, so when I saw the proposed ordinance, I thought about, okay, how does someone apply for this, right? And my first thought was, yeah, you probably need a survey, and you need to have a site plan showing where your ingress and egress is to the building for the fire department to go around, right, and fight fires. You probably need a floor plan showing where ingress and egress is within the building, some sort of a diagram that shows occupancy load from each building and each room, prepared by an architect, probably necessary. That all makes sense. So you need to have, plans that you would submit with this form. It sounds like, from what I'm hearing, is that the board is interested here in having someone, maybe a third party, review that submission, an expert, to review the submission for compliance. And I don't know if the fire marshal or someone at Lake Bluff has the ability to do that, but to the extent that staff isn't able to evaluate the application, which I think they probably could do most of it, you might need a third party to look at it.
Yeah, we don't have a fire marshal, so,
Okay.
yeah, there may be times we need a third party.
Yeah, so then maybe they could, call up, if Lake Forest has one, and says, here, we got this application, what do you think of this ingress plan or egress plan or something like that? To the extent that, this body didn't feel comfortable looking at fire plans. I'm just thinking out loud as to what this might all look like,
Sure.
But,
We'll have to test it out, I think, once.
Yeah, right.
yeah, and then we'll have our tenants, come and provide testimony as to why they don't, why sprinklers absolutely do not work for them. I think that's compelling. We'll also have, what was I gonna say? You'll also probably have some information about the cost, right, to install the sprinkler system, and about, we talked about the leases all kind of being staggered. What is the financial impact of having to install the sprinklers? That'll probably be part of the application, part of the narrative that we write up and provide to this body for review.
Yeah, right, that'd be helpful.
So those are kind of the things I was thinking about as I saw these standards.
I wouldn't think that the cost to install would be a factor.
Well, it's not a factor as far as this board is concerned,
Yeah, exactly.
but it might be a factor as far as somebody else is concerned.
Yeah,
We
It
can't
seems-
ignore it.
yeah, I think cost has to be some, like at the restrooms at the beach, that'd be impossible to get
It's silly.
a thing, right? That's just,
A bucket, put it by the lake.
right. But I do think, and it's one of those things, cost, if you have 20 tenants and they each, I think there's just gonna be a hardship there. It's just gonna be part of the hardship story. Sprinklers are just devastating to budget sometimes.
Yeah, the reason I thought cost might not be a factor is because if you make it a factor, every single building that doesn't want it will come in and say, I can't afford it.
Yeah, but that's just one of the criteria that you can look at when balancing these
Yeah,
other
criteria.
criteria.
Yeah, that's, I
Yeah,
just think it's.
But yeah,
like-
absolutely.
Like, a church could say, well, if we didn't look at that, they could find a way to put within the buttress, cost is always a factor, because anything can be done if you have time and money. So I do think cost is always a factor, it's just how practical that is, and I just think this is gonna be a little bit harder than science.
Or it's gonna be harder than science, I don't wanna do it.
Yeah, so,
Well,
we,
one thing is, particularly, over in, off on Waukegan Road, that whole, industrial park over there, all of those buildings complied with the fire codes when they were built, and they aren't that old. So a lot of them probably still meet the criteria of the building code not. You know, a single-story building, non-combustible construction.
Yeah.
You can get pretty darn big without having to put sprinklers into it.
Right.
I think where more might be a problem is some kind of residential application or, you know, things like that where corridors don't meet the current code.
Right.
And that kind of thing.
Rick, do you have sprinklers?
We do. They were put in originally in the 70s.
So when it was, yeah,
When it was built, but we've got to change all the heads because
So, was it required at that time, or did you just do it because you?
we didn't get
Yeah.
it until 05.
Okay.
They were already in, we've done
Yeah.
some maintenance, we changed some things, and had to upgrade some things, pressure valves and things like that. But
Okay.
it's really essential for us.
Yeah. Is it if one goes off, they all go off, or are they heat-sensitive heads?
I don't know, I think they're heat sensitive.
Yeah, I think they are too.
Find out tomorrow, it's a good question.
One at a time, and then if the heat gets to a certain point, then the zone area will kick in.
Yeah.
I think Profile Plastics is the only one that has a deluge system where
see.
they can turn them all on.
I see.
Yeah,
Okay.
for where they have the hot ovens for
there's a
plastic.
lot of flammable stuff in there.
Yeah, right.
They also have dry systems too, right? Those comply, don't they?
Yeah, right, they do. Yeah, there's such a thing, yep.
Yeah, that's,
All right, anything else?
No, that's it. So thanks.
Yeah, thanks for your input.
feedback.
Thanks for your input, right.
Yeah.
Okay,
that's
then
all
I
I
guess
have.
we'll call this meeting adjourned.
Yep, we can
All
do
right,
that.
do you want to make a motion to go home?
so moved.
All right.
Okay, motion
done.
passes. We're adjourned.
Wow, under an hour.
Yeah, with a lot of